6 months ago, a penthouse in Palm Jumeirah was priced at $40 million US. But this week, a super villa there is being sold for the price of a used car dealership in Ohio. And the craziest part, no one is paying any attention. The luxury real estate market, which once grew by 1,400% in Dubai, a place that turned the desert into gold and built the magnificent Burj Khalifa, is now witnessing a silent cascade of collapse. Rental yields have plummeted from 9.2% to 4.1%, triggering a catastrophic wave of 30% to 40% of crypto money fleeing. Even more horrifying, the Black Swan event struck right next to Fairmont, the Palm in February 2026, shattering the illusion of a completely safe haven. More than 45,000 completed villas now stand ominously in the dark like steel tombs, bearing district cooling costs of up to $80,000 per year. Despite the government's attempts to manipulate price displays and delay rarer data by 60 to 90 days to conceal the truth, the tide of liquidity has receded. Is this the opening shot for the demise of global property havens? Let's search for the answer right now. 6 months ago, a penthouse at Palm Jumeirah was sold for a final price of $40 million US. This week, the same building listed a similar apartment at a price lower than the cost of buying a used car dealership in Ohio. A crazy pricing paradox. But what's even scarier is no one cares. Car dealerships in Ohio still have buyers, while the super luxury glass blocks in the desert stand still in the dark. Look back to the past to see what material this illusion is woven from. In 1990, Dubai's gross domestic product was a modest $7 billion US. By 2023, that figure surpassed $110 billion US, a leap of over 400% in just 3 decades. Under the direction of the Al Maktoum royal family, they pushed the non-oil GDP share beyond 95%. Isn't it miraculous? Of course. But how? They turned concrete and promises into a new religion. The real estate and construction sector quickly became the backbone, contributing 5% to 7% to the annual GDP. Dubai doesn't just build houses. They construct peaks to challenge the gravitational pull of global economics. They erected the Burj Khalifa, the tallest tower in human history, and created Palm Jumeirah, an artificial island visible from space, purely as a display of power. They were willing to build a real indoor ski slope inside a shopping mall despite the outdoor temperature scorching at 115 degrees Fahrenheit. That is a defiant message sent to the world. Where there is money, nature must bow down. By 2021, people called this the Monaco of the Middle East. The formula is very simple. 0% personal income tax, 0% capital gains tax, and a red carpet laid out to protect all foreign capital flows. In 2022, the peak of the frenzy was revealed with over 86,000 successful transactions. The price of villas in Palm Jumeirah skyrocketed by 100% in just 1 year. Tycoons from Russia, China, India, Western Europe, and the USA brought cash-filled suitcases and cross-border transfer orders to scoop up paper projects from the moment they were just 3D drawings. International media hailed it. Forbes praised it as the most resilient market on the planet. And villas on Jumeirah Bay Island reached listing prices of up to $82 million US. Everyone believed in one legend. Dubai's real estate only goes up, but we all understand. In this world, is there anything immune to gravity? When a market is driven by blind faith and muscle flexing, it only takes a small push to realize it is standing on a sand castle. What do you think? Would you be willing to trade the old Ford in your garage for a penthouse with a view of the Middle Eastern Sea? Or would you prefer to keep the running car rather than hug a pile of inanimate glass? If the subscribe button for this channel also grows by 400% like Dubai's GDP, how great would that be? Let's click it and see if it works. And when the flow of money is too fast and blind, that is when the global legal brake is suddenly pulled in a place where no tycoon expects. At the end of 2023, a shocking event occurred, but few noticed it in mainstream media. The International Financial Task Force officially placed the UAE on the grey list due to gaps in controlling financial crime. For the wealthy, this is not a routine administrative procedure. This is a power cut that shuts down the entire system. The essence of the grey list is to force every international bank on the planet to impose enhanced control mechanisms on every money transfer and every transaction related to Dubai. The so-called frictionless paradise suddenly vanished, replaced by enormous procedural barriers from Western correspondent banks. Before they could recover, at the beginning of 2024, a second blow came directly from Washington. The U.S. Department of the Treasury issued new guidelines, specifically naming Dubai as a corridor for high-end real estate money laundering. The domino effect was immediately triggered. American banks refused to process transactions related to the UAE, while compliance departments across Europe quickly imposed similar control measures. At this moment, a stark truth emerged. A significant part of Dubai's real estate boom had been built on the foundation of dark money. When regulations tightened, the Russian tycoons who had poured billions of dollars into palm villas after the upheavals of 2022 suddenly received an ultimatum from Dubai's own banks. Prove the source of your assets. The mandatory due diligence process and verification of ultimate beneficial ownership caused many accounts to be frozen. To preserve liquidity, oligarchs were forced to quietly list their luxury properties at deep discounts on the secondary market. High-end brokers whispered among themselves that the smartest investors had already packed their bags and left before the media could report it. When the flow of money from Eastern Europe was cut off, Dubai lost one of the most powerful engines driving luxury villa prices. The city's once proud loose legal system had now become the biggest risk trap for anyone trying to hide wealth. Are these tycoons now wishing they had bought U.S. government bonds instead of desert villas? Let me know your opinion in the comments. But it's not only traditional cash flow that is being blocked. Another kind of virtual cash flow. The most frenzied financial energy of the 21st century, is also quietly destroying itself from within. Let's move on to the next part to discover what fatal blow the crypto bubble has dealt to this desert oasis. To understand why million-dollar villas in Dubai are being sold at giveaway prices, we must look at the symbiotic relationship between desert real estate and the cryptocurrency market. During the period from 2021 to 2022, it is estimated that about 30% to 40% of ultra-luxury real estate transactions were paid directly with profits from cryptocurrency. The government's open policy toward digital assets turned the city into a sanctuary where virtual millionaires and billionaires could realize their profits. But what is built on illusion disappears with illusion. When the technology bubble burst, Bitcoin plunged from its peak of $69,000 to nearly $16,000. An entire class of wealthy buyers vanished almost overnight. The payment chain immediately broke. Investors who had committed to buying off-plan homes using crypto leverage no longer had the assets to cover their remaining installments. This triggered a massive wave of contract cancellations across the market. However, the follow-up punch from the digital asset market was only half the story. The other half lay in a deeply flawed population planning strategy. From 2020 to 2024, the Dubai government approved the construction of more than 300,000 new residential apartments. Think about this demographic paradox. 300,000 luxury apartments were added to a city of only 3.5 million people, where the majority of residents are low-income migrant workers who will never have the opportunity to live in those luxury developments. The consequences were inevitable. By mid-2024, more than 45,000 luxury apartments and villas had been fully completed but remained completely empty. These became true luxury ghost towns. The glass towers stood fully constructed, but without residents. Night after night, not a single light turned on inside many of them. Even more alarming, the business model used by many mid-tier developers was not much different from a Ponzi-style structure. Instead of relying on long-term bank financing, they used buyers' deposits, typically 10% to 20% of the purchase price, as construction capital. When the flow of new deposits stopped because of the market slowdown, the entire model immediately began to collapse. Projects were quietly abandoned even after developers had already collected money from customers. Complaints submitted to the Dubai Real Estate Regulatory Agency regarding project delays surged by a reported 340%. Interestingly, that figure reportedly appeared briefly in an internal financial report before disappearing, making it extremely difficult to find online. They hid it because they knew the truth always leaves a bad smell. Has anyone here ever watched their investment collapse after buying at the top of the Bitcoin market? Let us know in the comments. And with 45,000 empty homes sitting across the city, if every viewer moved into one, Dubai would certainly become lively again. Share this video now. When supply and demand become unbalanced and cash flow dries up, the market only needs one physical shock to fall into complete panic. And according to this analysis, that shock arrived at the beginning of 2026 with an event described as a black swan. February 2026 marked a turning point that, according to this analysis, delivered a devastating blow to investor confidence in the UAE. A true geopolitical black swan event unfolded. A direct attack involving missiles and drones targeted strategic locations within the country. Most notably, the explosion was reported near the five-star Fairmont The Palm Hotel, one of the iconic landmarks on the artificial island of Palm Jumeirah. This single event shattered one of the strongest investment beliefs that had fueled Dubai's luxury real estate boom. For years, investors believed Dubai was a completely safe haven, isolated from military conflicts in the Gulf. That perception collapsed almost instantly. The world's most risk-sensitive investors reacted first. British, French, and German millionaires and billionaires reportedly began activating emergency exit plans. Only weeks after the incident, the luxury real estate market entered what was described as a severe liquidity freeze. The numbers reflected growing panic. Transaction volume across the market reportedly fell by 51% in March 2026 compared with the previous month. Fear spread rapidly. Luxury villas that had once been viewed as secure stores of wealth suddenly appeared vulnerable in the eyes of global investors. Capital from Western countries that had poured into Dubai during the COVID-19 period began flowing back toward domestic markets and alternative financial centers. The pressure did not stop there. Insurance companies sharply increased war risk insurance premiums for coastal developments across Dubai. These rising insurance costs further weakened homeowners' willingness to keep their properties. The market became almost completely frozen. New buyers refused to enter. Existing sellers searched desperately for purchasers but found almost none in the secondary market. The artificial island that had once symbolized prestige, wealth, and global ambition was now portrayed as one of the largest liquidity traps following the security incident. If someone offered you a free luxury villa located next to the missile impact area, would you move in? Comment dare or no below. And don't forget to subscribe before another black swan arrives. When an asset is no longer considered safe, and nobody wants to buy it, its most frightening characteristic finally appears. It becomes a machine that destroys its owner's cash. Let's move on to the next part to discover how this wealth destruction trap continues draining the fortunes of the super-rich. The sales pitch of Dubai brokers used to follow a simple and attractive promise. Rental yields of 8% to 12% per year. Doesn't that sound appealing? Of course it does. But the harsh reality told a completely different story. The gross rental yield in Dubai's luxury property market collapsed from a peak of 9.2% in 2022 to only 4.1% to 4.9% by the end of 2024. A decline of more than 55%. That drop severely damaged the cash flow of investors who had used financial leverage to purchase expensive properties. The wave of digital nomads that had arrived after the pandemic began leaving. At the same time, major corporations continued reducing senior staff across the Middle East. But the biggest problem was this. Whether your luxury villa was occupied or completely empty, the bills never stopped. Annual service charges alone could cost homeowners between $30,000 and $80,000 every year. On top of that came the enormous expense of cooling a property in the desert. To protect expensive leather furniture, luxury wood interiors, and valuable finishes from temperatures reaching 115 degrees Fahrenheit, the air conditioning system had to run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when nobody lived inside. At that point, the property stopped being an asset. It became a toxic liability. Owning an empty luxury villa meant burning thousands of dollars in cash every month. As those continuous losses piled up while property values kept falling, many investors reached their breaking point. Panic selling began. This is the classic liquidity trap. When maintenance costs become greater than future growth expectations, an asset quickly loses its attractiveness. A strange paradox appeared. Properties were being offered at 60%, 70%, even 80% discounts, yet buyers still stayed away. They weren't afraid of the purchase price. They were afraid of the endless operating costs. Combined with an inventory of more than 45,000 vacant luxury homes, the market entered a cascading cycle of declining values. Sometimes, the electricity bill for an abandoned villa became more expensive than the benefit of owning it. Would anyone here like to pay the electricity bills of Dubai's billionaires? To avoid annual losses of $80,000, don't forget to hit the like button and let the YouTube algorithm do the work. But Dubai's nightmare is not just the story of one city. It is part of a much larger global picture. Let's move to the next part and discover how governments around the world may be trying to hide the truth behind luxury real estate markets. Look beyond Dubai, and it becomes clear that this is not an isolated story. According to this analysis, the crisis unfolding in Dubai is a stress test for the entire global safe haven system used by the ultra-wealthy. Between 2019 and 2023, enormous amounts of international capital poured into 4 major luxury property markets: Dubai, Miami, Singapore, Lisbon. Now, all 4 are facing serious challenges. Miami is experiencing its highest luxury apartment inventory in 4 years, driven by rapidly rising disaster insurance costs. Lisbon lost momentum after the Portuguese government ended the Golden Visa program, causing transaction prices in many foreigner-dominated neighborhoods to fall significantly. Singapore deliberately cooled its luxury property market through strict government measures. After imposing an additional stamp duty of up to 60% on foreign buyers, luxury transaction volumes reportedly dropped by 42%. So why, according to this script, would Dubai try to hide signs of decline? The explanation presented is simple. The UAE's long-term strategy to reduce dependence on oil relies heavily on the belief that real estate prices will continue rising. If that belief disappears, foreign investment could weaken, tourism could slow down, and an economy that still depends partly on oil would face greater risks. To prevent that outcome, the script claims authorities increased control over the market narrative. Brokerage firms and exchanges were reportedly discouraged from publicly revealing deep discounts or major loss-cutting transactions. Heavy penalties and even professional license revocations were described as possible consequences. Meanwhile, major property portals were said to display only developer listing prices, even though actual transaction prices were often reported to be 20% to 25% lower. The Dubai Real Estate Regulatory Agency was also described as delaying official transaction reports by 60 to 90 days. According to the script, the purpose of these delays was to slow public panic, soften the appearance of falling prices, and give the market more time to absorb the shock. From a broader economic perspective, however, the script argues that Dubai is not expected to experience a catastrophic collapse similar to 2008. The UAE possesses sovereign investment funds worth trillions of dollars. With enormous financial resources, the government has the ability to intervene selectively, purchase distressed projects, and restructure debt for major state-linked developers whenever necessary. But the script delivers an important warning. That financial safety net is designed to stabilize the system. It should not be expected to rescue highly leveraged retail investors or middle-class buyers who entered the market near the peak. Many individuals who borrowed heavily based on promises of endless growth may ultimately bear the losses themselves. They remain trapped between unfinished off-plan commitments and a secondary market where liquidity has almost disappeared. According to this analysis, this marks the end of an era driven by speculative money, dark capital flows, and cryptocurrency-fueled demand. The market is now being forced to transition toward cleaner capital, greater transparency, and genuine long-term residential demand. Let's move on to the final part to discover the defensive investment strategies and the video's concluding message. If you want to survive this new market cycle by 2026, keep the following defensive strategies in mind. Rule number 1. Focus on properties that generate real cash flow and maintain high occupancy rates. According to the script, areas such as JVC and locations along the future Metro Blue Line offer stronger long-term fundamentals than speculative luxury projects. Rule number 2. Stay away from the illusion of the outskirts. Avoid off-plan speculation in areas where transport infrastructure is still incomplete and where developers cannot demonstrate strong escrow protection for buyers' funds. Rule number 3. Cash is power. Take advantage of the pressure created by distressed sellers. Rather than chasing hype, look for unique properties in prime locations that become available at discounts of 20% to 25% below peak prices. The video's final warning to global investors is simple. When FOMO becomes an investment strategy, and when a city values perception more than reality, the next domino has already started to fall. Perhaps the biggest lesson is this. Never buy a house simply because an influencer beside an infinity pool tells you to. If you had $10 million today, would you buy a discounted luxury villa in Dubai? Or would you choose the safer option of leaving the money in a bank? Leave your opinion in the comments. Together, we've explored a side of Dubai that, according to this analysis, is very different from the glamorous image often presented by the media. From symbolic megaprojects to anonymous capital flows to geopolitical shocks, the central question remains. Are we investing in real value, or simply paying for an illusion? In finance, whenever the crowd is looking in one direction, it may be the right moment to look the other way. If you found this analysis helpful and it gave you a clearer perspective on major financial decisions, don't forget to like this video and share it with anyone who values facts over flashy marketing. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next in-depth investigative report. Finally, remember that everything presented in this video is intended for educational, analytical, and entertainment purposes only. It should not be considered financial advice, investment advice, or legal advice. Every investment in real estate or any other asset carries significant risk. Always conduct your own research, verify the available information, and consult qualified professionals before making any financial decisions. The end.